The hall was buzzing with energy, chandeliers glittering overhead, and the polished marble floor reflecting the glow of golden lights. Guests in sparkling gowns and crisp tuxedos laughed, their voices echoing with the sound of wealth and privilege. It was one of those nights where fortunes were flaunted, where the powerful rubbed shoulders with the powerful, and where those without a place in such a world were invisible. Unless, of course, they were brought in for amusement. That night, all eyes shifted when a little girl stepped timidly into the vast hall. She could not have been more than 9, her frame fragile, her hair tangled into a rough braid that had loosened as though it had been done days ago. She wore a faded blue dress, too big for her, the sleeves nearly swallowing her small hands. The hem trailed on the ground, worn at the edges, as if it had been passed through countless hands before it landed on hers. On her feet were shoes so scuffed and loose that they slapped the floor with every careful step she took. Clutched tightly in her arms was a violin. Its wood was scratched, the varnish faded, but it was held as if it were a treasure. Some guests raised their brows. Others chuckled quietly behind crystal glasses of wine. It was absurd, wasn't it? This grand ballroom, filled with men and women worth millions. And here stood a child who looked as though she had come straight from the cold streets outside. At the center of the room, sitting lazily in a leather chair, brought out just for him, was Alexander Drake, the man everyone whispered about. A self-made millionaire, ruthless in business, feared by competitors, and admired by those desperate to be like him. His suit was cut from the finest fabric, his shoes polished to a mirror shine, his watch gleaming with diamonds. Everything about him screamed wealth and power, but even more than that, it screamed control. People wanted his approval. People sought his favor. And tonight, he was in one of his moods. The kind where he found entertainment in toying with those beneath him. He leaned back in his chair, swirling the wine in his glass. His sharp eyes landed on the girl. And what do we have here? His voice cut through the chatter, cold and amused. A child with a toy, or a prodigy about to surprise us? The girl froze. Her grip on the violin tightened, her knuckles pale. She looked up at him, then at the sea of strangers surrounding her. Every face seemed to blur together, a mix of curiosity and judgment, but all waiting for her to either dazzle or fall apart. Alexander tilted his head, his lips curling into a smirk. "Play something," he said. His tone was mocking, yet it carried authority, as though refusal wasn't an option. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Impress me, and maybe I'll adopt you." Gasps rippled through the hall. Some laughed openly at the audacity of his words. Adopt her. The idea sounded like a cruel joke, a bet made for entertainment, rather than an offer of kindness. For Alexander, it was just another show of dominance. Another way to remind everyone in the room of his power, to decide a child's fate with a single careless sentence. The little girl's lips parted slightly. Her breath caught, her eyes glistening with something unspoken. Fear, perhaps, or maybe something far deeper. To the crowd, she looked fragile, trembling, a bird cornered in a cage of wolves. To Alexander, she looked like the perfect object for tonight's amusement. "You heard me, little one?" he pressed, his voice low and rich with condescension. "Play. If you're good, you might just change your life tonight. If not, well, at least you'll give us a laugh." The people closest to him chuckled. A woman in pearls whispered something into her companion's ear, and they both smirked at the child. But the girl didn't move. Her small fingers stroked the neck of the violin, as though she was drawing strength from it. She remembered her mother's words, soft, gentle, spoken long ago before the sickness took her away. "This violin is your voice, Leela. When the world refuses to hear you, let the strings speak, Leela." That was her name. But here, in this vast hall, she wasn't Leela. She was just the little girl, the object of mockery. She swallowed hard, her throat burning with the weight of all the stairs pressing down on her. One of the men near Alexander leaned forward, smirking. She's frozen, Drake. Maybe she doesn't know how to play. The millionaire chuckled. Then tonight she learns what disappointment feels like. His words cut like knives, sharp and deliberate. Leela's hands trembled. The bow felt heavy in her grasp. She could feel the judgment like a storm surrounding her, waiting for her to fall. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn and flee from that hall, from those piercing eyes, from the cruel man who dangled false hope before her. But another memory rose in her chest, stronger than the fear. It was her mother again, smiling despite her frailty, whispering in the dim candlelight of their tiny home. When you play, play with your heart. Don't let anyone tell you you're small. Music doesn't come from size, it comes from soul. She blinked back tears. She couldn't run. Not here, not now. Her mother's violin wasn't just wood and strings. It was her inheritance, her lifeline, the only piece of her past she carried. She would not let it be mocked. With a shaky breath, she raised the violin to her shoulder. The crowd shifted, some leaning forward, others rolling their eyes as though preparing for a child's clumsy attempt. Alexander watched with a predator's amusement, sipping his wine, waiting for his entertainment. The first touch of the bow to the strings was hesitant. A thin, fragile sound filled the hall, shaky and uneven. Laughter erupted from one corner. "Is that it?" Someone snickered. Another added, "Poor thing. She can barely hold it right." Alexander's smirk widened. "Go on, little bird," he taunted, his voice slicing through the noise. "Show us what you've got." Or, is that all? Leela's eyes shut tight. She tuned out the laughter, the voices, even the mocking tone of the man before her. In her mind, she wasn't in the glittering hall anymore. She was back in her tiny room, sitting on the floor with her mother, who hummed softly as she guided her fingers along the strings. She was back in the place where music was love, not performance. Her grip steadied, her trembling slowed. And as she drew the bow again, something shifted in the air. The crowd didn't know it yet, but the girl was about to remind them that true music doesn't beg for attention. It commands it.